Today we're painting this simple blueberry watercolor. I'll show you every step, from the first wash to the final details. Let's get started. I've already transferred the outline to my watercolor paper to save a little time. If you'd like to use the same outline or see the full materials list, you'll find both in the description below. I'm using just 3 blue mixes for the blueberries. First, French Ultramarine with plenty of water for the lightest values. For the second mix, I'm combining French Ultramarine with Quinacridone Rose to create a richer blue violet. I'm also adding just a tiny touch of Quinacridone Rose to my first mixture, so even the lighter blue has a subtle violet tint. For the darkest mix, I'm combining French Ultramarine Neutral Tint and just a hint of Quinacridone Rose. I'll start with the first blueberry using the lightest mix. While the paint is still wet, I lift out the highlight with a clean, damp brush. Next, I drop in the medium mix while everything is still wet, letting the colors blend naturally. Finally, I add the darkest mix near the bottom. This part sits in the shadow of the bowl and the surrounding blueberries, so it should be noticeably darker. I'm skipping the blueberry right next to it for now. That way the colors won't run together. I'll continue painting the other blueberries the same way, slightly varying the colors from blue to blue violets. Keep the light source in mind as you paint. In this composition, the light comes from the upper right, so the highlights should stay on that side of each blueberry. I also avoid painting 2 neighboring blueberries while they're both wet. Working around the composition helps keep the edges nice and clean. This is just the first layer. We'll add more depth later with the second layer. I'll speed this part up since all of the remaining blueberries are painted the same way. Once everything is completely dry, it's time to paint the bowl. I'm mixing Jane's Grey with sepia and plenty of water. I begin by wetting the bowl with clean water. Then I gently drop the color into the damp surface to create the shadows. The bowl itself is very light, so painting only the shadows is enough to suggest its shape. I'll also paint the inside of the bowl using the same soft grey mixture. Next, let's move on to the blueberry sprigs. For the leaves, I'm using Undersea green together with Perylene green. I wet each leaf with clean water first, then drop in Undersea green followed by a little Perylene green, especially near the base. I'll speed this up since I'm painting all of the leaves the same way. For the stems, I'm mixing burnt sienna, burnt umber, and neutral tint. I'll paint all of the stems using this mixture. To make the stems look a little more natural, I add touches of green here and there while they're still damp. Now it's time for the second layer on the blueberries. I'm placing the darkest shadow near the bottom of each blueberry, where the light reaches the least. This darker value helps emphasize the round shape. I soften the edge with a clean, damp brush. Going back to the leaves, I start by painting a single central vein. Then I increase the contrast by adding darker green near the base and along a few of the edges. Now I'm painting the small dark centers of the blueberries using my darkest mix. I'm not trying to paint every tiny detail. Small dots and irregular shapes are enough to suggest the texture. I leave a lighter area in the middle of each center. Try not to place every center in exactly the same spot. Small variations make the blueberries look much more natural. I soften some of those dark centers with a clean, damp brush. Next, I mix yellow ochre into my brown mixture and paint the thin rim of the bowl. On the shadow side, I add a little burnt umber for extra depth. I'm also adding another layer of the gray and sepia mixture to strengthen the shadows on the bowl. Then I soften the transition with a clean, damp brush. Finally, I add a few crisp highlights with white gouache. For the cast shadows, I'm using a very diluted mix of Moon Glow. Any gray would be fine here. I'll paint the cast shadow beneath the bowl first. Then I add the shadows beneath the loose blueberries and the small sprig, keeping the direction of the light in mind. Right underneath the bowl, I add one final touch of darker color to anchor the composition. Before finishing, I add a little of my brown mixture to the stems to create some subtle shadows. This small step gives them a bit more depth without making them look too dark. And that's our finished blueberry painting. I hope you enjoyed painting along with me. If you did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more beginner-friendly watercolor tutorials. See you in the next one.